A joyful moment from The Champ with John Voight as a has-been prizefighter back in training and little Ricky Schroeder as his adoring 8-year-old son. The Champ is just one of 5 new movies we'll be looking at on sneak previews, 2 film critics reviewing the new movies in town. Across the aisle from me is Gene Siskel, the film critic of the Chicago Tribune and CBS TV News in Chicago.
And this is Roger Ebert, the Pulitzer Prize-winning film critic of the Chicago Sun-Times. Now, in addition to The Champ's sentimental melodrama, we'll be reviewing The Suspense of Murder by Decree, a new Sherlock Holmes story. Also, the romance and comedy of A Perfect Couple, Robert Altman's new film. Also, the adventure and comedy of Buck Rogers in the 25th century. But now Roger starts with a film that, to my mind, is one of the finest musical pictures ever made, Hair.
I liked it too.
Great.
The stage version of Hair was one of the most successful musicals of the 1960s, but I would have guessed it somehow to be hopelessly dated by now, a relic of the age of Aquarius along with hippies and flower power and love beads. Remember love beads? I would have guessed wrong. The new film version by Milos Forman takes the strings of the original musical, including a lot of great songs, and combines them with a contemporary, fresh approach, as in this scene of a classic generation gap, where a hippie, played by Treat Williams, invades high society. When he's not dancing on tabletops, Treat Williams looks for confrontations with the establishment. After a friend of his is drafted, for example, he drives all the way out west to try to visit him during basic training. That scene is just a perfect distillation of the way American society was polarized during the Vietnam era, and in fact, one of the best things about this completely alive and successful movie version of Hair is that it captures so exactly some of the feelings of America in the 1960s. It's a musical, yes, with all the great hits we remember like The Age of Aquarius, Good Morning Starshine, but it's also an accurate memory of what things were like 10 or 12 years ago. And it's like West Side Story or Cabaret in this, that it manages to be serious and joyous at the same time. It's a good movie.
I think it's better than that. I think it's great. And what I love about it is most movie musicals, as soon as somebody starts to sing, the action really stops. Here, they blend in beautifully. We saw it. That woman says to him, "You got a lot of nerve," and he responds, "I got life." It fits beautifully. A nice screenplay. Very well done.
I think you're right. One thing that's interesting about it, directed by a man named Milos Forman, who's from Czechoslovakia. His previous big movie in this country is One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
Academy Award winner.
A lot of Academy Awards. In both of these films, he shows a real feeling for American society, even though he's in exile, you know? And I was thinking maybe it's because both of these films are about exiles within American society, people who don't really fit and who feel left out.
Both films are also about freedom, if you want. Nicholson trying to get out of that hospital, and these kids trying to be free, America trying to free itself of some really tough conflicts. I think this film is so darn good because it's actually like a documentary. If you were writing a newspaper story on what America was like in the conflicts, you'd use quotes like that from that MP, who actually is played by a real MP, not an actor. Oh, it's awfully good. I recommend this film as highly as anything we've got on the show.
2 immediate yeses, right?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Now, our next movie is not in the same league. It's Murder by Decree, yet another Sherlock Holmes film. Why so many Sherlock Holmes films? Well, as the cost of making films gets higher and higher, film companies seem to be playing it safer and safer with remakes, sequels, tried and true subjects like Sherlock Holmes and Dracula, films that don't take many risks, films that don't take any risks. Murder by Decree is a quite violent film. In fact, it's so bloody, I think it should really be rated R instead of PG. In that picture, Christopher Plummer plays Sherlock Holmes. Late in the film, he confronts England's Prime Minister, played by John Gielgud, with evidence that a series of killings of low-rent prostitutes leads right up to the throne of England for its prime suspect. And there we see really the film's biggest problem. At a crucial point, its ending, Murder by Decree, is much too talky. That speech goes on for at least another 5 minutes. It ends up ruining what could have been a fine picture. Does have some good performances. Christopher Plummer is a good Holmes. James Mason is excellent as Dr. Watson. But the film's long, talky passages really obliterate all the thrills.
You know, Gene, you're right. I was thinking there can't have ever been that many thrillers that suddenly, at the end of an hour and a half of action and so forth, stabbings and burnings, and you're right, it's very violent, suddenly we get, you said 5 minutes, I'd say at least 10 minutes of inexplicable dialogue. They recapitulate what happens. Holmes speculates about the meaning of it all. It's not elementary at all this time to Holmes. The audience sits there, they're stunned. It's going on and on. What did they do, tune into a radio play?
Yeah, well, you've devastated this picture. I'm amazed, I guess, that it does build up like that and then really come to a halt. Do you think it should have been R-rated? I did.
Perhaps so. Yeah, it's a pretty bloody picture for a PG. It's not a family Sherlock Holmes movie.
Yeah, I would not take my kids to the film, and in fact, I wish I didn't have to go myself. Yeah.
Well, I'm sorry, but you did.
Yeah.
All for the good of the show. Our next movie is A Perfect Couple by Robert Altman, a filmmaker who never seems to repeat himself. He's always starting off in one new direction after another, but his new movie is so offbeat that maybe even Altman himself didn't know quite where he was headed. Perfect Couple is about a gloriously imperfect couple who are matched up by one of those videotape computer dating companies. The girl is played by Marta Heflin. The guy is played by Paul Dooley, and so there he is standing in her apartment, an unexpected guest, because she's made a date with another guy sent over by the same computer. Okay, so what do we learn about the computer? It looks like the girl ordered mustaches, blue men's suits, and yellow roses, and so far so good. But then it turns out she has nothing else in common with the guy that she's been matched up with. Now, Paul Dooley plays a member of a very, very strange Greek-American family. It's headed by a father who totally intimidates his middle-aged children. Marta Heflin, on the other hand, comes from an extended family that's half rock band and half commune. And you could sort of say these two people were not exactly made for each other. They share almost nothing except the ability to get each other into the most appalling situations. Some nice, wry, understated dialogue there. It's a funny scene. The first scene was funny, too, and in fact, there's a lot of funny stuff in this movie, but one of the problems with The Perfect Couple is that Altman combines this offbeat romantic comedy with a lot of musical footage featuring a rock band called Keeping 'Em Off the Streets, and he never seems quite sure in his own mind whether his movie is about the band or about the two star-crossed lovers. I'm afraid that's what keeps the movie from working. It's an interesting film, it has good performances, has more than its share of comic inspiration, but it just never quite pulls itself together.
I agree with you. I've got 2 points to make. One, I really liked the couple.
I did too.
Yeah, I found both of them interesting as individuals, and certainly as a couple. I wanted them to get together. I was rooting for them. But then, as you mentioned, it falls apart at the end. Now, Robert Altman's had a lot of problems with ending his pictures, but usually it's like the last 5 minutes maybe of Nashville. He had trouble there. Here, it's 45 minutes. The picture really falls off in the second half.
Yeah, you start out with these two interesting people, well performed, in these bizarre situations, the guy's home life with this crazy father that he has and so forth. Just when you get involved, suddenly you're looking at concert footage of this band. It's good enough music, but you keep saying, what are we doing looking at the band for? What happened to the people? Let's have more about them.
I think it's sloppily made, and the reason may be that I think Robert Altman may be making too many films too quickly. He's one of our most gifted filmmakers, Nashville, McCabe and Mrs. Miller, MASH. Brewster McCloud I like too. But he's made 14 films in 9 or 10 years. I think he's making them too quickly. This one he whipped out right after Quintet. I don't think he put enough care into the picture, and I think it shows.
Yeah, but it's kind of funny. Now, I don't think either one of us can quite recommend it, and yet I'd say it's worth taking a chance on if you like Altman. Even
for the first hour, maybe, at least for me. Now, our next film is another example, like Murder by Decree, that Sherlock Holmes film earlier, of a film company taking fewer and fewer chances. It's MGM's The Champ, a remake of the old 1931 Wallace Beery film. You probably know the story. Can a down-and-out boxer, once a champ, put his life back together again, regain his self-respect, and fulfill the faith of his young son? Jon Voight plays the fighter, an alcoholic and a chronic gambler. Everybody's got at least 2 problems in this picture. Faye Dunaway is his ex-wife, who divorced him when he hit the skids. Now, at a racetrack barn where Voight is working as a stable boy, Dunaway tells Voight that she now wants to take custody of their son, whom she abandoned as an infant. Now, you would think that would be enough emotion for one scene, but as if all of their human problems weren't enough, the script really lays it on thick. The kid's brand new horse has just been injured in a race. Hold on, there's more. Voight's plummeting career sinks even lower when he's arrested for punching out his bookie's muscle men. The kid comes to visit Voight in jail, and Voight tells his son he wants him to start living with Faye Dunaway. Again, another heavy emotional scene. That kid sure blinks a lot, but that's as far as I'm going to knock his performance. That scene does drag on awfully a lot, like so many of the scenes in the movie, where the kid is reduced to walking around, crying in his sweet little voice. Oh, Champ. That's what he calls his dad, Champ. Oh, Champ. Come on, Champ. You can do it, Champ. Too much. Also, I didn't believe Jon Voight in this role. Most of his emotions were laid on much too thick. In fact, the whole film is really drenched in sobs and sentimentality. But my biggest objection is the same one we had a couple of months ago when Roger and I both knocked the making of a new version of Invasion of the Body Snatchers. And the objection is this. Why? Why remake The Champ? Do we really need another movie version of The Champ? You know, it isn't Hamlet. Worst of all, why waste a year out of the lives of 2 of our finest actors, Faye Dunaway, Jon Voight? Why?
I guess you could say we don't need a new version or an old version of a lot of movies, but I think people are going to movies like this now. I liked it. It's old-fashioned, it's melodramatic, it's romantic, it's a tearjerker. You can see the wheels going around. It's a machine to make you cry.
Now, wait a minute.
Okay.
You say it's a machine to make you cry. That means you're aware of something being done to you. And this is where we differ. Because as soon as I get the feeling that a movie is doing something to me, my back goes up. You liked it. Why? Why the difference?
I like the plot mechanism. I felt the old-fashioned obviousness of it was part of the appeal. A handsome guy, his poor little kid, his beautiful wife, the rich man on the ship, all the tears, the horse going, everything, the big fight at the end when they're, the prize fight, everything was such a cliche that I kind of relished it.
Yeah, and I just, the ones that have the cliches that work for me are when I don't recognize it. Star Wars, Rocky, lots of cliches, but they're so good at it and convincing. Here, I'm watching that kid blinking. I'm seeing John Voight, and I don't buy it at all.
Well, I don't go so far as to say that I think the movie is a masterpiece, but I do think I can recommend it. I think in its old old-fashioned way, it has kind of a sunniness and a charm to it that appeal to me.
What do you think about what I mentioned before, about Voight and Dunaway in a picture like this?
I think they could certainly both be in better pictures, but on the other hand, they have been in better pictures. They will be in better pictures.
Well, that's optimistic. Now, you go ahead with our next film.
Okay. Our next movie, talking about movies that are remakes, even worse, is a ripoff. I wasn't surprised to see Buck Rogers come along for that reason, especially not after Star Wars broke every box office record in sight. Because one thing's inevitable about an enormous hit movie like Star Wars, and that is we know it's going to inspire countless imitations and satires and ripoffs, and I guess you could say there's a little bit of all of those things in this new movie called Buck Rogers in the 25th Century. It's based on the old comic strip about an astronaut who's catapulted into the future through our old friend, the time warp. Those are always dependable, And the future, for some reason, looks a lot like the past, with beautiful damsels in distress, sinister villains, cliff-hanging adventures. Here's one of the movie's dogfights in space. It's a direct ripoff of Star Wars. This movie started out as a made-for-TV film, and it really doesn't hold up on the big screen. The movie tries to get away with its cheap production by throwing in a lot of camp humor, but the jokes wear pretty thin after the first, say about 5 minutes, and the special effects wear so thin you can almost see through them at times.
Yeah, I didn't like it either, but my biggest objection is this film is a real manipulation here. This is obvious. The picture doesn't end in the way we expected. The villains aren't vanquished, and the only reason they did that, they wanted to leave it room for a sequel. So this is the problem. They're trying to make another film, not the one at hand, and the audience really gets shafted in this picture.
Hold on a minute, Gene. I think we have a guest in the balcony, and I think it might be Spot the Wonder Dog. Hello, Spot. Here to introduce the Dogs of the Week. That's as if Buck Rogers wasn't enough of a dog for this week. Anyway, I guess this time we have a neck-and-neck race. Is that right?
Yes, 2 Dracula pictures. Some people have complained that they're sick and tired of us picking so often on Kung Fu films as our Dog of the Week. Well, this week, thanks to George Hamilton and Susan St. James and an awful script, my dog is Love at First Bite, a toothless Dracula comedy. George Hamilton as Dracula simply doesn't know how to play comedy. You don't make fun of a comic character. It's much funnier if you play him straight. Not George Hamilton when he romances a woman in a contemporary disco. That says it all, a very unfunny film. If I hadn't been reviewing Love at First Bite, I would have left the theater at first glance.
On the other hand, Gene, what if you really wanted to sink your teeth into the vampire legends? I can't think of a worse movie to see than a new pseudo-scientific, pseudo-historic, pseudo-serious, would-be documentary named In Search of Dracula. The movie goes in search of the Dracula legend with lots of shots of castles in Romania and sinister graveyards in the Black Forest, all narrated by veteran vampire Christopher Lee, who makes a list of the things that can kill off vampires. Things like silver crosses and stakes through the heart, and garlic and mirrors and innocent virgins and thorns of rose bushes. But he forgot one thing that can also kill off vampires, and that's this movie.
I bet you. And now to recap the main movies on this show, both Roger and I can't praise enough the movie version of the musical Hair. We give it our highest recommendation. The yeses next to our names mean, yes, we recommend you see this picture, which is rated PG. Roger and I also agree that Murder by Decree, the Sherlock Holmes film, is much too talky when it should be thrilling. 2 no's for that. We can't recommend you see it. And 2 reluctant no's for the love story A Perfect Couple, a film that doesn't know where to go after its first hour. Roger and I disagree on the remake of the tearjerker The Champ. Roger says he likes it. I say no. I felt manipulated. Finally, we both agree that Buck Rogers in the 25th Century is a poor imitation of Star Wars. 2 loud no's for that.
And that's it for this show. But next on Sneak Previews, we'll review The Bell Jar with Marilyn Hassett as a suicidal young writer, the multi-million-dollar disaster epic Hurricane with Mia Farrow, and Dreamer, a love story, believe it or not, that's set in a bowling alley. Until then, see you at the movies.